So, if you want to buy an extra controller for your modern console, say a PlayStation or a Nintendo, you have plenty to choose from. And the peripherals market is pretty outstanding, and if you're on a budget, you can get one for like 20 bucks on AliExpress, but of course the first party controllers are more expensive, like 80 bucks. And damn, just realized Nintendo still sells the crappy Joy-Cons for like 100 bucks a pair. Disgusting. Anyway, while that might seem expensive, there are of course even more premium first party and third party options, and they do cost quite a lot. And given the number of professional gamers, yeah, it's certainly a niche with a lot of various expensive gear. Just your regular first party controllers don't really seem to go up in value that drastically, and for systems produced by the big players, Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, or even the fallen soldiers like Sega or Atari, yeah, they produced a lot of them, so they are abundant and pretty cheap, even if you go look for the older models like the PS1, Xbox 360, Nintendo 64, or the GameCube. And for the majority of the older systems, there are plenty of modernly produced third-party options of various quality. Some of these controllers conform to a standard like USB or the old DB9 connector that Atari, Sega, Commodore, and other manufacturers used, so sometimes they're even interchangeable between consoles. And I do have a lot of game systems, and indeed a lot of controllers for all of them. Sometimes me and my buddies get together and play some of these old games from our childhood, and for some systems I like to have upwards of 4 controllers or more, so I can play multiplayer games. Now, my collection and also my storage space is pretty well filled up, and I have long stopped actively searching for game systems to buy, not the least because they've become prohibitively expensive in the last years, but just last year I was looking around Facebook Marketplace, as one does, and I was pretty stoked by what I found. It was something I've never seen before in the wild in all my years of hunting around for games and consoles, but it was of course a system I was familiar with, and it was a Vectrex. I've only ever seen this thing online, featured on various forum posts and videos, but I have never played it myself, so I was curious about that and I have talked to the guy. After a bit of back and forth, he settled for 120 bucks and it was fairly local to me, so I went to pick it up. Upon arriving, I could see that it belonged to an old-timer who brought it over from the UK, and he was kind enough to turn the unit on so I could see that it was indeed working. However, instead of the fantastic original control panel, it had a pretty generic 80s joystick sticking out of it, so I asked what's with that, and the guy said, yeah, not a big deal, the original controller went missing, but this one works just fine. And I was happy to see that the game was really responding to the joystick inputs, and that the unit in fact took that classic Atari DB9 connector, which was reassuring, and I thought I could use any old Atari, Commodore, and Sega controllers with it, of which I had many. So I happily took it home, powered it on, and started playing with it, but it was at that point that I noticed that the joystick just wasn't working as it should, which made total sense, since not only was it a 2-button joystick, and Vectrex used 4 buttons, it was also wired completely differently. For example, it would shoot when moving the joystick up. But I thought perhaps I could use one of my other DB9 style controllers, since there are so many different ones, but before just plugging one in, I thought it'd be best if I did some research first, so that I don't accidentally damage the machine or short something out. And after digging around, there were 2 things that I found. First, no regular Atari, Commodore, or Genesis controller or joystick will work out of the box with the Vectrex, since again, its control panel is wired completely differently, and while you can indeed take, for example, a Genesis controller and rewire and modify it to work with the Vectrex, I wasn't too sure I wanted to go that route. You can also make or buy converters that take either a Genesis controller, a PS2 controller, or even a USB controller, and they interface with the Vectrex and make it all work. And while that sounded cool, I didn't really like the idea, since one, if I was to buy a converter like that, it would have ended up costing like 50 bucks or more with the shipping and import costs, which was like half of what I paid for the console itself. And two, it looked kinda clunky, since the original controller snaps neatly underneath the screen, and it's really quite nice. The second thing that I've learned was the hard truth about Vectrex prices online. I thought, well, perhaps I could just get the original controller on eBay, or perhaps even a third-party one from China, and when I started looking at those prices, holy freaking nuts. Even the loose controllers in broken or unknown condition were going for insane prices, like upwards of $100. And the boxed units, Jesus, it was way beyond what I've seen for regular first-party controllers from any console or manufacturer by far. And yes, there are indeed third-party Vectrex controllers you could buy or have built to order, but they weren't cheap at all, and most of them don't have the analog stick. And even though the analog feature was only used in a handful of games, it's one of those defining features since Vectrex was one of the first game consoles ever to feature it. And of course, they wouldn't fit the little compartment underneath the CRT. And I was like, why in the heck are these things so goddamn expensive? And I think there are a few reasons, and to answer that question I had to go back to 1982 when this thing was released in the United States. Back then it was really quite a different game machine since unlike its competition, which was Atari 2600, Battelle Intellivision, and for example the Magnavox Odyssey, it used a built-in CRT monitor which could display vector graphics, and when paired with the analog stick, it was really the closest thing to 3D a consumer would see for a long time. And despite it not really being that much more expensive than some of the other systems, since upon release it cost $199, whereas the Atari 2600 was selling for $149 at that point, and the Intellivision was $249. It unfortunately flopped in the marketplace, being discontinued just 2 years later in 1984. And indeed, in 1983 and 1984, the prices for these guys were steadily dropping, so they'd slashed the price in half down to $99 in 1983, and then to the clearance price of £39 by the end of its life. Ouch. And even though there's no concrete data for total units sold, judging from everything I've seen and the fact that it wasn't on the market for that long, I think it's safe to assume it sold well under 1 million units worldwide, which means of course any surviving units are going to be very hard to come by 40 plus years later. And the controllers themselves are going to be even rarer since very few people got a second controller. It was a very optional purchase at the time, and as far as peripherals go, it too was on the expensive side even when it was new. This ad shows that in 1983, when the price had already been dropped to $100, you could have gotten an extra control panel for $35, which was like the third of the price of the console itself. And this one here shows it going for 25 quid, which again would be like $40 in 1982. Compare that to the price of similar joysticks and controllers for other consoles in Sears or Radio Shack. For example, you could have gotten a pair of Tandy joysticks for $25 and an Atari CX40 joystick for $18. So yeah, Vectrex controllers with their analog sticks were not only state of the art, but also bloody expensive. $40 then is like $130 nowadays, which is funnily enough what they're still going around for on eBay loose. So damn, they hold their value better than many stock bonds. So anyway, there was no way in hell I was paying those prices, but that meant I was still left without a way of playing and enjoying this awesome system, so I thought about ways to go about having a controller on a budget. And remember how I said there are people building these controllers to order? Well, one of the guys who makes, or at least made them, was kind enough to make his design public. His name is Kool-Aid, and yeah, he designed a Vectrex controller you can build yourself, and not only did he provide the details of the build on his website, but also the necessary 3D printing files on Thingiverse. And that's the coolest thing about this. Once you assemble it, it fits exactly like the original one, neatly packing underneath that awesome CRT, and it also accepts all the original overlays. So I've decided to get all the things I'd need for this project. Apart from the 3D printed shell, which my buddy did for me since I don't have a 3D printer, I got some 20mm red Sanwa arcade buttons, and these were around $2 a pop, and along with the shipping, the 4 of them cost me around $15. Next was the 9-pin D-sub extension cable I got from AliExpress for around $5, and this is generally used for fixing Genesis controllers, and I've also gotten this joystick module that's meant for like an Arduino, and the reason I went with this one is again because it was cheap, $3 delivered, even though the design itself was suited for an Adafruit 2-axis joystick. So all in, it cost me around $25, which was pretty sweet as compared to those other options, but you know, I'd have to build it myself, and there was no guarantee I wouldn't mess it up or fry my Vectrex in the process, but that's what makes life interesting, am I right? And since I would also have to do all the soldering myself, I was absolutely thrilled to have folks from FNURSY send me this awesome professional soldering station. And as someone who has done many electronic projects for my videos, I got absolutely roasted about the cheap irons I usually use. But, you know, I'm no professional, so I just used what I had, and to tell you the truth, it just all kinda worked fine. But boy howdy, let me tell you, having a good iron makes a huge difference when doing projects like this. And you don't even have to break the bank to do so either, and this awesome station comes with the main unit itself, which enables you to set things like the temperature, sleep time alerts and so on, and it also has two helping hands attachments you can add to the either side, as well as the iron holding unit, which automatically turns the temperature down when you set it into the holder, and it has a very nice built-in brass cleaner, a tip removing tool, and a little antenna, which keeps the cable out of the way. Speaking of the cable, you get two of them, and they're detachable, and by far the thinnest, most flexible ones I've used, and they accept a wider range of super precise tips. I mean, holy crap, it's just awesome to have all this stuff. Not to mention, it heats up and cools down in seconds, and it's all just a joy to use. So if you need an awesome but affordable iron to assist you in your future projects, make sure to check this thing out in the video description. And yeah, I've used this thing to solder everything down, starting with the buttons, which I've snapped in their appropriate holes, and the first order of business was to solder down the ground wire. So I just attached all the ground pins to one another, and then the ground from the extension cable. Now, this 3D printed model actually has the color legend and pinout right on it, which is freaking amazing. But just to be sure, I have probed my cable to make sure it all matched up with the original design, and it's a good thing that I did because it didn't quite match perfectly. Some of the colors were assigned to different pins, which makes sense. I mean, this isn't the original cable after all. So I did my own little table on a piece of paper, and the thing I'm comparing it to, it's a diagram I found on this guy's website. But after doing a bit of research on the Vectrex itself, yeah, I found out it was actually taken from the original service manual. And I mean, this thing is just freaking awesome. Can you imagine modern consoles shipping with this stuff? Not only does it contain a full wiring and PCB schematics for all the components, but it has a complete parts list. Heck yeah, man. And so I've proceeded to attach the appropriate wires to the buttons and also to the negative and positive 5V input on the joystick, as well as the X and Y axis. The 5V rails actually require a couple of resistors to be added, and I had some on hand. However, the original diagram asked for 4.7 kilo ohm resistors, but the closest ones I could find were 2.7 kilo ohms, because they never have the freaking things in stock. But as far as I can make out, the only thing these resistors do is adjust the sensitivity of the stick, and you could experiment with more or less resistance or even add a potentiometer instead, so I just went with these ones. After doing all the soldering and making sure I've installed the heat shrink tubing, which I haven't shrunk yet because I want to test it first, and double checking that nothing was shorting out, it was time to start testing it all out. I got out my Vectrex and tried plugging in my controller, but it was at that point I remembered that I had to whittle down the plastics a little bit since the Mega Drive end just wouldn't fit as it is, but after a little work with the X-Acto knife it fit fine. I turned it on and nothing, and that's because I had it plugged in the second controller port. So, take two, I plugged it in the correct hole and it turned on, no sparks, which was reassuring, and upon getting in game, I could see that my ship was constantly rotating. Welp. The buttons would respond. As you can see, I'm moving my ship forward, but I found when pressing the fourth button, yeah, the console would turn off. So clearly there was something wrong with the wiring, and yeah, I indeed made a mistake and I had the -5V and the ground switched around. And the reason I did that is because the label on the joystick actually had ground instead of -5V mark. And after swapping those wires up, I booted up the system one more time and success! My spaceship was turning how it should and all the buttons did what they'd supposed to. Player select, teleport, move, shoot. Awesome. And I have to say, from all the early 80s home arcade consoles, this one feels the most unique and addicting. I mean, I've spent like 20 minutes with this half-baked controller, just having a blast shooting around these mine-stormed maps. But once I knew everything was working fine, it was time to close the controller up, so I made sure to screw everything down along with that joystick, which didn't really fit the holes since it was designed to fit that Adafruit one, but I just used some rubber washers and some small M3 machine screws to hold that and the entire shell together, after which I wanted to see if it would all fit as intended, and I mean, look at that. You can even see the old Vectrex logo, and even considering that this is a 3D printed model and it's a different plastic, I mean it looks pretty nice, although I might get some sticker overlays for it too, make it even cooler. And at this point, I guess the only thing left to do is to clean it all up, since I haven't really cleaned this thing when I first got it. I'm just using some alcohol, vinegar, distilled water, detergent mix, and a microfiber cloth, along with a toothbrush to gently clean the vents and the plastics, and also to remove an old sticker someone stuck on there, Lord knows when. I've used a plastic guitar pick to get the bulk of it off and then followed it up with some alcohol, and that made short work of it. After that, it was time for another round of Mindstorm, and again, for how cheap and simple this was to do, I'm very pleased, and I can wholeheartedly recommend this to anyone who needs a Vectrex controller and is looking for a simple and fun electronics project. And if you're thinking of building it on your own, I've put all the links to the products and guides I've used to make one, but I'm sure you can use other parts like different sticks and buttons to get the job done just fine. Also, make sure to check out that soldering iron, it's awesome. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you. And if you've enjoyed learning about this awesome little console and how expensive the joysticks are, then great, you might want to check out some of my other videos. I do crap like this every week. Builds, projects, restorations, repairs, retrospectives, all sorts of nerdy tech stuff. If you'd like to support what I do, you can do so on Patreon for just $1 a month or more if you'd like. You'll get early access to my videos, and I usually have a couple of them lined up for my Patreons to see first. If you'd like to chat with me and other users, you can join our Discord server. All the links will be in the video description. Thanks, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.